I don't want to get in trouble with YouTube, but if I hear the words power slap one more flippity flipping time, I'm gonna flip out. And I guess that's a good place to begin, because look, Dana White is a legend of the business, and to this day, it's hard not to have a massive appreciation for him and what he continues to do for the UFC and for MMA as a whole. For me, it's a love-hate relationship. I'm not coming at this as a hater or with an absolute answer to this topic or conundrum, but is Dana White having a bit of a bad year? I personally would say so. I think there have been several things that have caught my ear that have started to make me see this force of nature of a man as a little bit more compromised, a little less of an immovable object than he once was. I'll get to a few different points here, but let me start with power slap. We're in a time where a lot of fans of this sport are starting to notice a drop-off in the quality of the product, and I mean the UFC events. And yeah, look, we're in a bit of a slump, it happens, but the reasons for this being the case are clear. The UFC have a certain quota of events to hit per year to ensure that they live up to their deal with ESPN, and this of course requires a bigger roster. And so the quality of the once exclusive club that is the UFC has become watered down. The shows, the headliners, and the fight night events in particular, these have been diluted to some extent. And that is what it is. Even the Endeavor takeover ensured that the promotion would need to have an added degree of focus on their role as a money-making machine. But these days, I guess it seems as though the UFC, with Dana White as its mouthpiece, are looking at things a little differently. And yes, there are some awesome cards coming up, and this in some ways is just the natural progression of the sport and its growth into a major figure in the sporting world. But I think the UFC's monopolization of mixed martial arts has, for one, never been stronger, and in my opinion has never been more worrying. And looking at Dana's unique ability to dominate the media, to dominate his fighters, and to dominate whatever narratives that may spring up from the general public, in some ways it's impressive how good he is at what he does. But do you honestly think that Dana of 10 or 15 years ago would ever consider tarnishing his company's name by peddling power slap to his audience? Sure, everyone likes money, and the UFC were still on the climb during that point in time, but Dana's power, his unique brand of determination when it comes to getting what he wants, I feel like that power is less about the growth of MMA now, and more about the growth of the UFC and UFC related products. I don't even need to go into the Reebok deal, the Venom deal, the revenue share that the fighters are getting, the enormous profits that the UFC are making year by year, these historical figures that are seeing them blow their own numbers out of the water with each passing year. Those are indeed facets to this point, but I just don't see Dana as the same guy anymore. He's a highly successful man with his own stake in the game, but the powers that operate behind him, the ESPNs, the Ari Emanuels of the world, these are powers that go beyond Dana and the Fertitta brothers and their initial dreams of success. There's something cold about the UFC these days, and it's something that goes beyond the ticket prices, the pay-per-view prices, and all of the money-related stuff. And look, I'm not really going to try and say that this hasn't been coming for a while, but I feel like Dana's been hitting some new lows this year. That whole incident on New Year's Eve, which I don't need to detail too heavily, but you know, the situation with his wife, that was one issue. But the thing that really struck a chord with me was how swiftly and how skillfully Dana basically assigned himself as his own judge and jury by telling the world that his punishment would simply be that he would have to live for the rest of his life knowing what he did, and with everybody knowing what he did. And yeah, there's something to that, but when the media did make an effort to try and press him, he basically said something to the effect of, giving me a suspension would only harm the company, harm the fighters, and who would do my job if I wasn't there? I'm paraphrasing, but that was the gist of it. And then he just got on with his life. And I'm not saying necessarily that he should have been suspended or anything like that. It's not my place to say, but I guess it was just an eye-opening moment that kind of proved just how good this man is at what he does. The media can't corner him on anything, even when it seems like he's hit a point of no return, because he is, and always was, an absolute master of shutting them down. He'll either use the crowd to drown you out, or bully you into submission, and if that fails, I'm sure you'll have a tough time getting credentials the next time around. And he does this not because of his dislike of public scrutiny, or any of the media members on a personal level. He does this because he knows he can't give an honest answer to the question of fighter pay. He knows that he needs to paint his own athletes as guys who just don't want to fight if they don't fall into line. It's almost tyrannical, but again, his consistency on this front is almost impressive. And yeah, he's peddling power slap to the fans while telling the media in the same breath that they don't do gimmick fights, or at least they don't do them for Francis Ngannou. You have to be a tech billionaire like Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg, or another UFC heavyweight champion like John Jones, who got the all clear on fighting Tyson Fury from Dana in like the same week. And yeah, that fight will never happen, but gimmick fights are not beyond Dana. Look at CM Punk, James Toney, McGregor Mayweather, and again, look at power slap. Imagine if Major League Baseball decided to do an offshoot of their sport, where they gave their players foam baseball bats and got them to fight each other, with it all streaming on whatever platform they have. That would be a level of lunacy comparable to demeaning the idea of MMA with this abomination of a sport. And that's the real slap in the face. And look, Dana isn't entirely to blame there. He has some very loud voices in his ear at all times. And the mission for the UFC at this point is simple: intimidate the media, control the fighters, make money. But I guess for me, I'm having a stronger reaction to Dana's antics this year. Like, I don't even think that a switch up in the role of president would solve the problem. I think the UFC have very clearly shifted their interests. And I'm sitting here and I'm still angry about the initial Reebok deal. But you know what the sad part is? Like, I'm still gonna watch. I mean, you're damn right I'm gonna watch. Like, what's the alternative? I guess I just had a bit of a rant to get off my chest. I'd like nothing more than to see Dana White backed into a corner, forced to answer questions that he doesn't want to answer. The type of questions that literally every other head of a sporting body outside of MMA are subject to. I'd obviously like the fighters to get paid better. I'd like to see them free to wear whatever type of sponsorships on their kit they can get their hands on. But look, that's just my 2 cents. Tell me what you think in the comments section below. Leave a like if you're enjoying the content, and subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date with our weekly uploads. We have a lot of content on the way, folks, so stay tuned, and thank you for watching.